Hi, everybody. It's Lauren Price. I'm so sorry for all of the technical difficulties this morning. Today, we're going to be talking about frustration and what that does to the brain. And here we go, leading with me, myself, being very frustrated with technology. But hey, it's 2020, and if we learn anything, we've got to just kind of roll with it. So I am gonna do just that. I would love to share my slides that I have for you guys, but for some reason, Zoom doesn't want to connect with Facebook Live this morning, so you'll just have to look at me. I'm sorry. Okay, so first off, I want to thank webinars for allowing me to come and chat with you guys this morning. We're looking at a very different world today in 2020. So I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss with you guys how to engage our students in a way that keeps their attention, holds their attention, and keeps them out of threat zone. And that's what we're going to discuss today. Kind of that idea that when we're trying to engage students, we've got to get the information to this front part of their brain. And I love doing interactive Zooms with teachers. We have a professional development company, and we do a lot of workshops with our teachers, and I like to get everybody moving and interacting. So since I don't have slides, and we're not on an interactive Zoom, I would love for you guys to use the chat function throughout this webinar. I have Dr. Stephanie Toro with me here today that will be monitoring the chat, and she'll shoot me via text some of your questions, and I'll try to get everything answered. Let's just go ahead and get started. So today is a day that a lot of us are thinking, how can we keep our students engaged and have them learn as much in a Zoom meeting or in a hybrid kind of format versus in a live classroom? It is different, and I think that acknowledging that is important. First off, I want to tell you a little bit about how we came to be. Again, I'm Lauren Price, and I have over 17 years of experience in education, and I have a master's in educational psychology. I did a lot of research on self-regulated learning, and self-regulated learning is that idea that you really want to turn on the internal voice for students and allow them to determine what's working for them and what's not working for them. As educators, we can self-regulate for ourselves and try to determine if strategies that we're using in the classroom are effective or not effective. So as we go through today, think about ways that you can monitor yourself and your students to see what's working and what's not working. We also do a lot of research in brain-friendly learning strategies, and I love the brain, and explaining it to students is empowering to them. It explains the why behind what they're doing, why they're doing it. I also love it in that for some of my students that struggle more, to me, when you associate the strategy and the time spent and how the brain works, then they get out of that mindset that, oh, I'm just not smart. So I love that. We're actually going to start with the brain, and the brain is set up in a way where information, let's all use our hands. I know I can't see you, so we're gonna go by trust. So we're gonna use our hands, and we're gonna touch this back part of where our head meets our neck, okay? So that's our brainstem. Oh, we could use a nice massage this morning, yeah. That's our brainstem, and this is where our attention filter is hosted, okay? So all information comes in first through the attention filter, all right? And it can either go from there to the prefrontal cortex, which is the learning part of our brain right here. We can give our little heads, and that's the goal, right? But When there's any kind of threat involved, the information doesn't get to go up here. It gets stuck in the amygdala, which produces our fight, flight, or freeze reaction. So I like to show this picture of the seal and Mr. Sammy the seal's sitting outside, and he's great and wonderful and relaxing. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, here comes a fish. And so what does he pay attention to? What's different in our environment. So he's paying attention to the fish, and then all of a sudden, here comes a shark. And he totally forgets about the fish, and he's only thinking about the shark. Now, we're not seals, right? But the same kind of thing is going on in our brain, which is really helpful if we're trying to avoid an attack. But that isn't really helpful if I'm, say, in history class and I get a text from a friend and it sends my brain into threat mode. Okay, so we know about a seal in an environment and feeling threatened, right? What do our human brains think of threat? Well, we have 3 ways that our brains interpret threat, okay? 1, through frustration. So if a student is frustrated, like I said, I started today very frustrated. Why doesn't Zoom work today? Why can't I show you my beautiful slides? I'm frustrated, but I am going to hopefully get my prefrontal cortex going. So frustration, and there's tons of them out there right now. We're living in 2020. And we have number 2, boredom. Our brains perceive boredom as threat. Okay, so boredom for a student could come from feeling like they've already mastered a topic. It could come from a feeling like they're so lost, they're checking out. So those are 2 ways that boredom could be perceived for a student. The other way is not having your basic needs met. And that's kind of what was going on with Sammy the seal. Like he didn't want to, get eaten by the shark. Sleep is huge. Am I thirsty? Am I hungry? A student just can't think. So when they're in that threat zone, they cannot access their prefrontal cortex, right? So they can't learn. All right, well, it's not all helpless here, okay? Because we have ways to combat the threat zone, all right? But first, I would love for you to make a prediction in the chat. Okay, so I would love to put it up there. Maybe Stephanie, if you're listening, you could throw this into the chat so that they'll see. But it is, what do you predict are some threats causing students to stay in reactive mode? And what do you predict are some dopamine boosters? Actually, let's go to dopamine boosters. Why don't you just type in, what do you think are some ways to combat the threat zone? So that the seal was in, that we're in, how do you think humans can combat being in the threat zone? If you can throw it out in the chat and make some predictions, I'd love it. All right, I'm going to give you a minute to do that. All right, do we all make some nice predictions? I'm hoping so. Okay, so let's see. So we understand how to get into the threat zone. We've got those 3 things. Okay, yes, someone just asked in the chat about what are the 3 things for to be in the threat zone. So we have frustration, which We know I've given you a personal example today. Yes. And then 2, we have boredom. And 3, not having our basic needs met. Okay. So, and don't worry, guys. I have a bunch of materials that I'm going to share with you. There is a worksheet that has little checklists that teachers can use that we normally pass out that we're going to send in a PDF. And then I have a little video that shows all of this stuff that I'm talking about that we use with our students. So feel free to use either of those. They are for you at any point. And I'm always here to answer any questions. I will have Stephanie shoot out in the chat my email, or you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram for tips and such. And I promise I will share anything that I have. Okay, so we're gonna move on to what are we going to do once we're in this threat zone. But I wanna give you some examples first. Okay, so I have a student, and I see this a lot. I work with students individually on a variety of things. But as I mentioned, I'm really hot on the topic of self-regulation. So I work to build self-regulation skills in my students so that that internal voice of what's working, what's not working, hey, I'm going to use this strategy instead of just what I know because I'm in this habit. But I see students a lot of times in threat zone. And I see them in threat zone in writing more so than anything else. So they come in and when they're looking at this blank sheet of paper, they just kind of freak out. But through tracking and monitoring and giving them some of the strategies we're about to go over, it really helps them get out of that threat zone. And writing's so cool. I mean, this is a topic for another day, but you can break it down into the individual little components of writing instead of the student looking at the big picture of writing. And you can really get to the bottom of what exactly in the writing process is causing you this stress and anxiety. And then you can give them strategies to overcome that. And that's what really worked for this little girl. On a personal note, I was giving this professional development speech and seminar to a school. And I was talking to my brother, and he was so frustrated he said, he doesn't really enjoy his sister-in-law all that much. She's just not one of his favorites. And she can really trigger him in a way that he's really a calm individual. Well, I guess kind of calm. And, but she had triggered him so, and he came by and was talking to me and he was like, Lauren, I couldn't get any work done all day. All I was thinking about was her. And I said, you know what was happening, right? He's like, no. I said, she was all stuck. She got you in your amygdala. And when you're in your amygdala, you're either fighting, flighting, or freezing. And he was frozen. He couldn't do anything. All he was thinking about was that. So there's a real life example of my brother not doing any work because he's just concerned about his sister-in-law's antics. So there we go. Okay, so I told him there's hope. You can get out of threat zone just like we can help our students get out of threat zone. Through dopamine boosters. All right, so let's think of dopamine boosters. I know we have some people in the chat that threw out some answers. Let's see if you're right. But first, we're almost there. I want you to think about your most memorable learning experience. Okay? Think about your most memorable learning experience. We don't have to put it in the chat, but let's just think about it, okay? Think about it, take a minute. We all have those learning events. I remember in high school, I had this geometry teacher that would do high kicks if you got it right. That really sticks out in my mind for some reason. So think about yours in middle school or in high school or maybe even in college, a really great learning experience, okay? All right, do we all have it? Okay, now let's see if it matches any of our attention grabbers or our dopamine boosters. Okay, so on your sheet that you'll get, I've combined both of them because some of them are just overlapping. So let me go back to the brain. All right, so we got this information is stuck here in the amygdala, and we want to get it out of the amygdala. A great way to do that is to add dopamine to our brains. So we can increase the dopamine by all kinds of strategies. And then another great strategy is to hold the attention through attention grabbers. Okay, so one of them I just used on you guys. I asked you to make a prediction as to what some dopamine boosters and attention grabbers would be. That is one of them. When you ask your students to make a prediction, you're engaging their brain. The human brain really wants to figure out, am I right? Am I right? And then if they are, they get a boost of dopamine. If they're not, then they want to try to figure out why. And so they're engaged, right? So it's going to hit on two different things. Another one, and like I said, you're going to get the whole list. Normally I'd have it up, but sorry. Okay, another one is choice. It sounds simple, but if you give, and I think about my little kids, I have two of them. If I used to, even though I know you can't tell them what to wear, right? But if you give them 2 or 3 options that are in the realm of what you want them to wear, it makes them happy. And they're like, yeah. Okay, so same kind of thing with the students. Give them choice and they will stay engaged, okay? All right, so I'm looking down at my list here. What else do we have that I want to discuss? The list is pretty long, so feel free to use any of them, but I'm going to do another one for attention. Okay, novelty. When you, and I bet you anything, if your learning experience that you had in your brain had anything, I bet it had novelty. It was different. I think about my geometry teacher with the high kicks. I don't see that every day in a 6'2" man doing a high kick, right? So I remember that. Think about yours. Anything different. So I've seen all kinds of things where teachers dress up, they wear a special hat, they maybe have a different background, we're on Zoom, they could do all kinds of different things. When you make a lesson different, then you remember it more. And I just read a book, and I will figure it out what I just read. I can't remember it. Anyway, it was awesome. And I'll get it to you guys. But it was Benedict Carey. There he is. There we go. How We Learn. That was such a great read. And I loved it because as an educator, and I've been doing this for so long, I like it when research comes out and it kind of blows my mind. I'd always taught students in study skills, like study at a specific place, at a specific time, the whole thing, like set up your learning environment. And he kind of rocked it by saying, no, actually, if they study outside or if they study somewhere else in a different kind of environment, they're going to remember it more. And I think it's because of novelty. So I've been telling kids wrong all these years. I think that there's something about a consistent habit and then that different thing that you really want them to learn. That's what helps solidify in our brain that image and that memory. Okay. All right. So that's novelty. Let's talk about, so we have ways to increase attention, right? But let's also boost the dopamine. Okay, so to reiterate, the 3 that I stressed today, and like I said, you're going to get a list of all of them, a handful. And then those are choice, making predictions, and novelty. Okay, now, dopamine boosters. And this is what I personally work with students on, being able to internalize and boost their own dopamine. You can teach your students these things. Also, ourselves. We need to boost our own dopamine. I mean, we're working with kids, it's stressful. Come up with ways. I challenge you to come up with ways to boost your dopamine today. Okay, so 1, if you can build a personal connection with your students, you can boost their dopamine. We as humans need connection. This is also great for attention, all right? So let me speak on connections with students first, with you. So there's a lot of science behind. We work harder for teachers that we have a connection with and have a good rapport with. You work harder for students that you have a connection with. So I tell students to go out and have a meeting, just ask how a teacher's doing, send them an email, things like that. If you can try to connect with your students on a personal level, such like an individual one-on-one or something like that, even for 5 or 10 minutes, then they'll be more connected with you and stay more engaged. Also feel like you're supporting them and things like that. So there's personal connection. Now, with their peers, this is crazy, but we remember 50% more when we talk through something. I love breakout rooms for this reason. And I love the idea. I was in a conference, and she said, I want everybody to have voice equality here. So I like kind of that idea too, setting up a breakout room where you have jobs for your students. And so everybody gets to participate and you just don't have one leading. But they're so important to have that connection with their peers as well as with you. Especially if you're doing online school, and I'm sure we all probably will at some point this year if you're not already doing it. So I love the idea of breakout rooms. And I've heard from some teachers a concern, especially with like younger ones being in a room and like, are they gonna stay on task? And one thing that I suggested was you could have the students each have a job, and one of their jobs be record. If you use Zoom, you can record in the individual rooms, and you as a teacher can pop into each of the rooms too. So I hope that helps any of those concerns. Okay, other dopamine boosters would be the breath. Just like quick, deep breaths are great for calming the student and getting them back on track. I taught a 5th and 6th grade class study skills, and at the beginning of each lesson, we do this 1-minute mindfulness, just deep breathing and kind of relaxing, and I play this thing. And then one day there was a really bad storm, and so our session was cut dramatically short. And my associate that I was teaching with, she was like, well, let's just cut out the mindfulness. And the kids lost it. They were like, no, don't do that. That's the only time we get like a sense of calm when we're sitting here. So even though the kids may not ask for it, they need that, and their brain needs it. It helps you process information to have that just quiet calm. Another one is movement. Now, even I am sitting here playing with one of my fidget things that I use with my students. So you can order these on Amazon, but I like just having, and my personal children need it too, and the little things like this. There's all kinds of them. I have parents that come to my office love this one. It's a little ring, but like you can play with it because I do some parent seminars. So anyway, we just playing with something in our hands helps us pay attention. It can also help boost dopamine. There's research out there where they analyze results of student scores, and they had one group that didn't do any exercise and another group that only took like a 5-minute walk before they took their test, and they had a dramatic difference, like 5-10 points. So I mean, for long-term benefits, clearly more exercise better, and it helps boost that dopamine. But I mean, when we're talking about boosting dopamine, we got to think about the big thing here. I mean, we're living in 2020 through a pandemic. Mental health is something that our students are going to have as a challenge this year, more so than others. I mean, they're isolated, so that's why I love the ways to connect with people. We really need to help our students build some of these habits. And so if we can encourage them to get moving during our Zoom calls or whatever, there we go. I've done like scavenger hunts where you have people go throughout their house, or the kids go throughout their house and go pick something up and then come back. That's getting them moving. They're not just sitting there staring at a computer screen all day. My little one, I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they're both online right now. My 8-year-old came downstairs and was, what are you doing? And he was looking for a healthy snack he was going to take back to his PE teacher to show her that he could find a healthy snack, but it got him running down the stairs and so I love that. Ways to incorporate movement. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? Let me just go through some of this list. Music really calms us down. So if I had everything going during that time, that 1 minute time where you guys were going to reflect and then come up with a prediction, I would love to play music in that time. So giving students some think time with music, it can help them. And there's a lot of research. Stephanie, I don't know if you remember, and you can put it in the chat, but it's some sort of music theory. I can't remember. It's research behind the beats per minute. I'll look it up if Stephanie doesn't have it, but we use it in a lot of our trainings and give it to teachers. And there's been studies that have, you do 60 beats per minute for this kind of thing, like processing and thinking and things like that. So try to incorporate music. It really helps calm the brain. The other thing is music and calming the brain can be helpful before you do break them out into breakout rooms. Let them have that opportunity to think before they're thrown into a room with other children. Let them reflect, let them write it down, their thoughts, and that will help calm any kind of anxiety that they may have being in a group with peers, because some of our students may have that. Brain breaks in general, very helpful. I have my kids again, so I have the 11-year-old is ADHD, and he tells me all the time, Mom, I just need a brain break. And he'll go sit on the front porch and just kind of calm down. And it's a way for him to be able to control himself. So as I'm teaching my students these strategies for dopamine boosters, I look at it in a couple different ways. And this is what I've been doing with my kids so far this year. Teaching your students little ways to help them boost their dopamine throughout class that aren't distracting. Like, I'm playing with the ring, or another one, drinking water helps calm the brain. Those are all things that they can do in small bits. And then coming up with strategies like where you can assign weekend homework or something like that. Get out and run, or go find this. And those kind of things are bigger dopamine boosters and have a more long-term effect. So when we notice our brains getting in that threat zone, as teachers, you may be in the threat zone too. So think about for yourself what you can do in small bursts to kind of calm down, or in a bigger picture over the weekend or something like that, to really boost your dopamine and be your best for your students and for yourself. Okay. Let's see. Brain breaks, drawing, speaking in a different tone when you want something to really be remembered. I think we as teachers naturally kind of do that. Movement. So like I said, movement like this, but also like I did about like touching your brainstem and things like that, like getting them movement, getting them standing up, sitting down, those kind of things. Okay. So now we know what is a threat in our brain, right? We know how to combat that threat for our students with both dopamine boosters, and in our classroom to host attention with attention boosters, okay? All right, so how often do we need to do it, right? Okay, attention span. Our attention span is our age plus 1, okay? And sorry, for us people over 20, it caps out at 20, so I don't get 40 plus 1. But so now I would suggest throwing in dopamine boosters or attention grabbers every 5 to 15, 20 minutes. However, we're in 2020, and a lot of our students are already dealing with a fired amygdala. So we're also online, which I believe reduces attention. I was looking for some research, but I didn't finish that project. I would love to give you exact data. I'll keep on that. But so I would suggest like little bits throughout your, like in a 45-minute lecture, at least 3 to 4 attention grabbers. I wrote down every 7 to 15 minutes, depending on the age of students you're working with. Now, clearly, you're working with kindergartners. Man, you've got to get them doing stuff all the time. You're not having big lectures, right? The older they are, the better they can be. But I mean, think about us as adults in a long drawn out Zoom call. I mean, Stephanie knows I just start checking out. Like I can't do these long drawn out Zoom calls. So I think if you were to add little dopamine boosters and attention grabbers throughout and really plan your lessons accordingly, if you're online, things like polling are great to make those predictions, using the chat, things like Nearpod and all these tools. Stephanie, can you throw some of those out in the chat? I'm sure as we are already into almost, what day? It was September 30th. We have already been playing with some of these different things, but we have our favorites. So I'll have Stephanie list some of them in the chat. But those ways to kind of get interactive are great. Those are breaking up the lectures and boosting the attention. Okay, so we've got an attention span, age +1, but we're reducing a little bit because of the year and because we're online. Okay, so in this little whatever, however long we've been together, about 40 minutes, I have used a handful of attention grabbers and dopamine boosters. So I did predictions, storytelling. I forgot to tell you guys about storytelling. Storytelling is a great attention grabber with my brother and my student with the writing. I tried to be humorous. I don't know if it worked or not, but humor is one way to boost dopamine. In fact, one of the things that we do at finals time is we shoot out like little funny clips to our students. We give them like a finals binder, and then we give them little strategies, like a kind of countdown to midterms or to finals. And we give them like a little joke of the day or a little video, something like that. Also, boosting their dopamine through happiness. Like there are studies that found that people, even though they didn't even eat the candy, just getting the candy before the test increased their scores. So how crazy is that? So I've given students, like we do little smiley face cookies too at finals time. Everybody's just so stressed. Their amygdalas are fired. So we don't like that. Anyway, what else did I use? I did some movement. I did some interaction because you chatted. You did your prediction. You had choice. You got to choose something. Okay, so there we go. All right, so now we are back to self-regulation. So I'm going to try to show you guys this. So this is our self-regulation cycle. So it starts with goal setting. So you set a goal, then you follow through with your action, and then you monitor yourself. Is it working or is it not working? And then you evaluate, did it work or did it not work? So the biggest point for all of this is I want you to monitor yourself and your students and see what's working and see what's not working. So you tried an activity and it was a flop, just track it. See what worked, see what didn't work. I think that's a big part of self-regulation. I really love empowering our students to do the same. So challenge them. Hey, teach them about their brain. Teach them, hey, do you know that feeling when you can't think in a test, you stressed? Here's something you can do, and this is why. It really helps them feel like they can control instead of feeling so uncontrolled with whatever's going on, so out of control. There we go. So I love that idea of monitoring. I love what that can do for students. Okay, so as we wrap up, I want to remind you, I'm going to send you a PDF of this whole list of, it has up at the top all of the perceived threats in our brain broken up by the different types. And then down at the bottom, it gives you a checklist so you can try to integrate some attention boosters or dopamine boosters in your lessons. We're also including a video that will have just kind of this process in general. It's an excerpt from our digital workbook to teach students study strategies and self-regulation and all about the brain. We do it in some various schools. So it's a little excerpt there. So completely great to use with students if you do want to explain kind of the attention filter and stuff like that to them, feel free to do it. As we end, I want you to take a minute and I want you to think about, out of these strategies and in these quick, 40 something minutes that we've been together, what is a takeaway that you will use tomorrow or today, depending on where you are in the time? It's 7 a.m. here. So what you will use in your classroom tomorrow or today. And if you could throw it up in the chat, that would be great. Stephanie's going to monitor the chat. Also, you can throw up in there if you have any questions. Right now is time for questions, and I'm happy to answer them. I love it. You guys, some of you put like a calm environment. A lot of teachers in a seminar I was in recently said they love like scents, like lavender and stuff like that helps their students kind of calm down. So, meeting your needs to get comfortable, involve learners. I love that. Meaningful learning context, yes. If they feel connected to the content, then they will engage more. So if you can somehow figure out a way to connect it to them, like on a broad and general kind of thing, but then they can think about a personal relationship to it, then it will help them engage their brain. Prediction, activity, teaching them about the brain. I love that. Yeah. You want to teach them. It's so empowering to teach a student about the brain. And I'll try to include this little picture I have of the brain. It's really great. Monitoring. I really can't speak enough. I think that's what is so beneficial to some of the students that I've seen change, that act of monitoring and making the association between what they monitored and the results that they got. So like, this strategy didn't work for me, or this attention grabber or this dopamine booster didn't work for me. I'm gonna try this, You like the dopamine boosters? Good. I do think that we all just need some dopamine. 2020, right? Oh, Stephanie's not able to post comments, it looks like, because she was doing some websites in there. So I'm sorry. We'll try to include it. Maybe I'll do another PDF that I can send out. Okay, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. Otherwise, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I'll send you a handful of things, so no worries there. And if you watch the video, then you get to see my Sammy the Seal that you would have seen. Some of the teachers and some of the other professional development groups love my seal, so that's good. Okay, what are the most dopamine boosters for universities? I mean, I would say that you empowering a student and teaching them about just the concept of dopamine boosters to a university level student and allowing them to come up with some of their own, but some great ones for, so like I said, you have small ones for small burst of time, like in your lecture, how to pay attention, and like movement, water. I think water, within 5 minutes of drinking 8 ounces of water, it reduces anxiety and stress dramatically. So when I have like my kids, they're all stressed out, or my students, and I work with mainly high schoolers, some college level students. I just have them drink some water. Make sure you're hydrated. It sounds simple, but it really does work. Deep breathing. There's some breathing exercises that are led like by YouTube. That's what I've used with some students, and it's great. And even for I do it in my professional development lecture. So I do it with adults, and it helps them. It just clears the brain, and now I can focus. So I've even been in meetings with principals, and before they introduce me or before they start their meetings, they have a minute of mindful breathing. And so we can all use it, right? Let me think of other dopamine boosters. So I think, okay, let me look at my list here. I think humor too. In a college level class, I think if you can integrate some humor, then you kind of help reduce their stress and you get them paying attention. Okay. One, and I know we're asking about college, but for elementary kids, even middle school, reading to them helps boost their dopamine. Just little brain breaks, stepping away from something and letting them process. We have a lot of different we'll have little videos and dopamine boosters and stuff like that. If you want to follow us on Facebook or on Instagram, I'll put a lot of this stuff up there. I also have it on our website at www.academicindependence.com, and then you can just go to our educators and just our educators website, because we work with educators in professional development. And so there I'll take you to our coaching website, and we have tips and tricks there. I'll post some of these PDFs there too. Okay, let's see. Do we have anything else? I do the same things with middle and high school. Okay, yeah. I would do all the dopamine. I mean, you think about it, we all need dopamine. So adults, children. I mean, I just think for college students, I think some of the biggest boosts to them would be to help them realize the importance of sleep. Like I was saying, Benedict Carey's book, I read that section on sleep, and you'll convince a college student that they need to get that full cycle of sleep, because it breaks it down into, at this part in your sleep cycle, you're remembering this type of information. Your brain is doing this. Your brain is doing that. So I think explaining that to them and the power of sleep. When we're in college, we don't always get the greatest sleep, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but yeah. Okay, well, if we don't have any other questions, I think we might wrap it up and get you guys moving on through your day. Anybody else, Stephanie? Okay, everybody, I thank you so much for allowing me to come and talk on the teacher development webinar. And you can follow them on Facebook, on Instagram, they have everything. Hold on, what else? We have on YouTube, I think I saw on, yep, on Twitter. It's all teacher development webinars. And like I said, feel free to follow us too, Academic Independence or Academic Independence Coaching. We are all in this together. And I think that is the one cool thing about this pandemic, right? You know, we're all going through it together at the same time. So we can feel for each other, we can help each other. And like I said, I'm happy to help in any way I can. Reach out to me. I have tons of tips and tricks. Look for that PDF and the video. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And that's it. Bye, everybody.